This episode is also made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in the show notes.
Welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. I am joined by my friend Myriam from Tech Radar, and you have your own podcast.
Yeah, Mobile Tech Podcast.
Yes.
It's a tech podcast. I can talk about it later.
Yeah. And Kyle's been, you've met Kyle many times, but we are taking over the show today. Francie is traveling, so me and Myriam have the show, and we are actually out here in Santa Monica. Beautiful place. I actually wonder how the phone's going to render this crazy background. It's like a woven screen.
It's very textured.
But very textured, yeah. So we're out here checking out the BMW Neue Klasse. And actually today is the event. And the main thing is tonight. We haven't even gone to see the car yet. But what we just left was the BMW Design Works.
That's right.
Their design center, one of 3 in the world. They have one in Santa Monica here, one in Munich, Germany, and one over in Shanghai in China. Now they all collaborate, they also compete, but they are all BMW. And actually, it turns out X3 and X5 were products of this design center.
This design center. And it turns out they also consult for other companies.
Yeah.
And do farm out some of their work to John Deere, for example, which I was surprised because tech people like me, we get invited by a lot of John Deere stuff. They do a lot of technology. So
they seem very tech forward, and all their companies are. So they do mini stuff, Rolls-Royce, of course, BMW. There's even like an Ionity charger prototype around the corner that I found. I'll insert some footage over top of this, but it was pretty cool to see. And today they talked about, design ethos of Neue Klasse, which I actually want to throw a bit a history, because Neue Klasse is not just this new thing. It was also a new thing, 60 years ago with the original Neue Klasse.
I know. I don't have the details in my head of the dates, and you don't either, but you guys can look it up. The thing you have to understand is that the BMW we know today and we love today, that whole kind of essence of BMW as a brand started with Neue Klasse in the late 60s. And it was a big thing. It defined the cars from this, like all of the 70s into the 80s. I would say that even up to, the beloved E46 kind of timeline that evolved from there. It's gone a little wonkier in the last few years, and this is very arguable. Like I have mixed feelings. Like initially I hated the iX. I've driven it a few times now. Still not my favorite design, but it's grown on me a lot. But I think they're trying to I think they realize they've maybe lost their way a little bit. It's a little too scattered, their design language. And I think they're going back into this, let's create a new Neue Klasse, which is hilarious, right? Because Neue in German means new. So a new Neue Klasse for the next, 20 years or something, or whatever, 10 years at least.
Exactly. And I definitely wanted to get your input because Myriam also covers tech, like cars and tech, which is fun and exciting for the EV world, which is the blend of both naturally.
Yeah, I got all the phones and then I got all the cars. It's like, and mostly EVs, to be honest with you, because I had to narrow down the scope. I love my manual gas cars, but
same here.
I can't do it all.
Yeah, me and Kyle have to hide ours from the channel sometimes. But
don't start. They should know that we all have gas cars too.
But BMW is notorious for definitely trying to push some of the technology. And I wonder what your input is of like the gesture control and stuff like that with the interior, the iDrive 8 and everything.
I don't want to kind of pile on BMW specifically, but I have a big issue right now with the way the Germans in general are doing their user experience in their cars. I think Porsche is the least offensive. Audi, it's okay. BMW and Mercedes, though, it's just too much clutter. Like both visually, both in the interaction. There's so many steps, and again, I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for saying this, but Tesla leads the way here. They show how it's done. I know a lot of you don't like this because you don't want just an iPad in your car, but really that's all we need. Like, I still want physical buttons. I think Tesla doesn't do that right. The lack of stocks is idiotic, etc. We could go on. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of like, if you look at the tech, right? Like, forget yes, it needs more buttons, but just looking at the way you interact with that screen, like this iPad here that we see, it doesn't need to be more than that. And reinventing the wheel is not necessary. So all these decorations, animations, all that stuff, it's like, yes, it defines your brand, and I get you're trying to create an identity out of the UX, but that clutters the experience. That slows you down when you're trying to use the car. And if you're driving, especially in a Tesla has no physical controls, you don't want clutter. So, BMW, has a bit of that going on right now where it's very cluttered. I think, the Hyperscreen and Mercedes EQ cars, the same thing. Like, it's just so much overload. It's like, bring it down a notch. And you can add, like Cybertruck has shown us, you can customize that UI to look a little different, but the core of the way you use it is the same. Like, I'm not saying that BMW shouldn't apply all this design stuff we saw today, like the colors and stuff, to the UI. I'm just saying, like, right now, it's so many steps to do anything productive in a car.
I think they're refining their identity because, you have a Model 3, although you are shopping maybe for something different eventually.
Eventually.
But you have a Model 3 and you can get in a Cybertruck and know where things are.
Yeah.
And I think BMW, it was a big difference between iDrive 7 to iDrive 8.
Correct.
And now we're looking today at Neue Klasse and their new sort of CID, Central Information Display, and the new whatever panoramic thing.
I mean, I like a lot of this, like the idea that you can kind of place these little widgets, like, the same as what you have on your smartwatch, up in a line above you. And I like the angle display is kind of cool. Like that, I don't think that detracts from the user experience. But and again, I'm not judging this on Neue Klasse. I'm judging this on iDrive 8, what you see in an i4, i5, i7 today. I'm hoping they can get away from that clutter, that weight, because not only does it visually impede you, it impedes you in functionality. Like, everything is slow to react, and I know that a lot of that can be fixed with software improvements. And that's the other thing. They're not software people, right? And, Tesla might be too much of a software company because their hardware has issues. And as we know, finished build quality, the core of it is solid, but I think, and this is the reverse. The core of, we know that a BMW is going to drive awesome and have very few issues in terms of the hardware, but then the software, right?
Well, I think the software is done pretty well. I mean, you do have some history in software design as well, and coding, and I think BMW does, it works well, and they have one of the best Apple CarPlay wireless that just connects instantly.
I agree,
And I've met the engineer that was the lead of that, and they do some things really well, but I am excited to see their direction because of how simple Neue Klasse is.
I do want to see if they can make it cohesive and give it their individual flavor, and a lot of what we saw with the AI design language stuff that they're developing, like the colors, the textures that are going to be displayed on these screens. I like that. I don't want them to stray away from that. I just want that when I start using it, it's simple and intuitive. And right now, with what I know of BMW and Mercedes, it's not. It's like too many steps to do too many things. So hopefully we can simplify. And I hope that, what we're seeing right now, I know the prototypes, but I really hope we see some physical controls come back. A little bit. Like that, there should be a row underneath the display or in the center console somewhere of, even if they are programmable toggles.
That would be really cool.
It doesn't have to be physically the same for everyone. What if you have a little, like the touch bar on the MacBook where I was never a fan, but imagine you can't touch it. It doesn't do anything. It's just a display. And underneath are toggles and switches and dials. And you can assign, you can say, I want this toggle to be, temperature, and this one to be fan, and this one to be volume, and this one to be like my defroster or whatever. And you set that and it displays it at all times. You can change it. It comes with a preset that's convenient and everybody understands. If you get into a rental car that has it, you understand what to do. Like that, I'm fine with, but having that, when you get in a Lucid, when you touch that control, it's so nice to have that temperature control. So these are little things that I think need to exist. Do we need a power button in an EV? No. Do we need a light or wiper button in an EV or in any car? Not today anymore. We have auto wipers that work, except for Tesla. We have auto headlights that work, and you're going to say, but I want to turn my headlights off so I don't disrupt my child sleeping when I drive into my driveway. Yeah, that's what the touchscreen is for.
Because that's an edge case,
Or maybe make it programmable by GPS. You get close to your home, you get in your driveway, lights go off. That's something that can be done in software.
Yeah.
And they don't do that yet. It's like, to me, that's the thing coming from the software world. I'm like, anything can be reconfigured anyway.
Yeah.
Software-defined vehicles let us do this. Why are we not seeing these German companies, particularly, and the Japanese resisting? They're like so set in their old-fashioned ways.
Yeah.
And on one hand, I get it if they alienate their audience too much by making it too weird. But I feel they are making it too weird, right? Like if they do alienate their audience, it's going to be a problem. And it's like the RAV4 CRV shopper finally deciding to get a Model 3. It's a learning curve. Like I get it. But once you've learned it, now I think do you really want to go back to the way it was?
Probably not so
Like
much.
if I drive a Boxster or like a Miata,
Yeah.
I want it to, no, I don't even want a screen. I want like stick shift pedals. I want controls
Buttons
that are
for everything,
like,
yeah.
I want old school. And I'm hoping that some manufacturers continue to do that for us. But at the same time, if you're just driving a toaster from point A to point B, because that's what most people do, like you just want to be comfortable, you want to have a bit of fun, so you want some acceleration and some handling, and you want, this to be seamless and easy and maybe customizable, right? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the focus of the conversation, really what was wild today, was their focus on AI. Like it's buzzword, in tech, everything. It's like
Oh my
AI,
God, like
everything.
you have no idea.
And it's getting, overwhelming and sometimes annoying even because people, I think,
so bad.
overuse the term.
100%.
But this was an interesting use of it where BMW design engineers are looking at AI to aid them with their design. And I wanted to get your take on that because the buzzwords of like, oh, is it going to take people's jobs, or are they just using AI as a crutch unnecessarily? Like, what do you think of their implementation?
I thought it was very refreshing. As I said, as soon as I heard the word AI, literally, I rolled my eyes. I was like, oh, not again.
He almost left the room.
I just saw a Model 3 Highland drive down there.
Nice, yeah.
Anyway, but I was like, okay. And then they started explaining what they're doing, and I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. And basically what they're doing is the AI tools are evolving very quickly, especially in graphic design, and in creating movies now even, right?
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is they're just trying it out. They're, inputting something that they've created into it, getting the AI to modify, playing with the prompts. And then, from there, they're kind of trying to render that again with other tools into a style that they're familiar with. Might it be, illustration style or CG computer realistic style or, like concept car style. Like there's all these design and graphical styles out there. And so it was really kind of cool to see them do that. Like I really dug it. And I didn't feel like they were leaning on the AI in this kind of gimmicky way. They were just leaning on it saying, look, this is a set of tools that we have to explore in our jobs. And it's not taking our work away from us.
Yeah.
It's just making us more efficient at iterating to find the thing that is going to make that Neue Klasse pop and shine and get everyone excited when they get in the car.
They were experimenting and exploring with an open mind, like designers do. They usually create a mood board and they're like, okay, which angle have I not explored yet? And they were kind of using this as a mood board, more or less. They use tools like Midjourney, Runway, Creo, and of course Photoshop, Illustrator, some of the traditional ones. And they were kind of combining them and using different things. Like they would have the example they gave was showing the kidney grille, the famous BMW kidney grille.
Right.
The new narrower, nice one, I think. Kind of nice, Neue Klasse, like traditional one.
Yeah.
And then also the double headlight thing. And they were like, okay, now we'll take that Illustrator file and then adapt it with Creo, which kind of uses AI to adapt to like a static image and then, or I guess like text or whatever, and it makes it into like a photorealistic thing.
It kind of grows your image into something. Basically.
Yeah, and so they were using that to experiment with like textures and colors and just feel and kind of figure out, okay, how does this make us go any new direction? Like they were trying to like use AI almost as an additional employee, but like it's not really removing anyone.
It's like just an extra very powerful tool that they're adding. Like they're also using Stable Diffusion, a few other things like that. I just thought it was really cool to see it, mention AI without like the BS that I deal with in tech all the time.
Well, yeah. How many times did Google say AI in like their last keynote?
I mean, for those of you who are more into technology and gadgets, today is the day that Humane is releasing its AI pin, a wearable computer you can talk to. The reviews are out, and it's
rough.
It's rough. But I encourage you to check it out, because I think this is the perfect example of the opposite of what we're talking about. Whereas they overhyped this AI thing, and it's a bit of a disaster. It can grow because it's software, right? It'll get better. The hardware is solid. It's just more like talking about AI as a buzzword, making your eyes roll. That's it. I think what they're doing here is they're just saying, hey, we're not going to like AI the car. We're just using AI tools to create, like to kind of personalize the design language of this car to match our brand and our identity as a long-time historic car manufacturer.
And I think it caught some of us off guard because, we have the agenda as a PDF type thing, and nowhere in it did it say AI presentation.
No.
I think a lot of companies would have led with that.
100%.
Whereas we were just like, oh, we're going to go see how they designed it. And they were like, oh yeah, we also, did some AI stuff. And we were like, whoa, wait, hold up. Like, I feel like that wasn't necessarily the focus, but we focused on it as journalists. We were like, wait, you're doing what exactly?
It's funny, like I review a lot of phones, and when Samsung did the announcement for the Galaxy in January, the S24 series, it was AI, all the things. And then OnePlus launched their flagship, the OnePlus 12.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single mention of AI in there, and very few AI features on the phone. And I remember doing a podcast with a colleague of mine from The Verge, Allison, and we were talking about the phone, reviewing it on my podcast. And she says, you know what's so refreshing about this phone? It's a phone-ass phone. There's nothing about it that's AI.
Yeah.
They're not talking about it in the context of AI. It's perfectly capable of running AI, but they don't care about that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what feel like the best analogy I have for this BMW stuff we see today.
Yeah.
It's like they use AI, and they're not like, bombarding us with it.
Yeah, and I think a future podcast could be looking at, some of the other car manufacturers' use of AI, like notably lately, especially at CES, was like Volkswagen, AI in the software itself, like natural language processing. But I think thinking about it from the design perspective, we are in Southern California. A lot of design happens out here.
Yep.
Of course, Pasadena has the famous design school. And it makes me intrigued. I mean, we're kind of stepping away from some of the classic clay modeling. I mean, they still use that, but it's just a unique shift. And I think they're almost downplaying it a little bit because they're just like, well, this is just what we've been doing. They've been using it for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. I wanted to get your take on, and actually you kind of asked a question on this during the conference, or what they were showing us was like, BMW is looking at the future. They're like, that was the very buzzwordy portion of it. They're like, we're looking at 15 years in the future. And we're like, okay, how will you really know what's going to happen? What tools are going to exist?
That was my question. I'm like, if it's changing so fast, and it is, like, how do you, if you're planning for 2035, 2040, the Neue Klasse to last maybe that long, and how it's going to evolve over that time, design language wise, how do you see yourself predicting how to use those tools as they change so fast, right? And I think they gave me a good answer. It's that they will just continue exploring the tools as they come in and incorporate what they need as they need it. And but they admitted, it's a challenge. We don't, I was talking to one of the journalists afterwards, and the whole AI thing right now is that, in the past, we used to look at technology and we used to be able to see, like ahead of ourselves, like 20 feet, 30 feet, like maybe 10 years or something, and kind of extrapolate a little bit as journalists or as car people. And the fog was a little beyond that. Like we'd be like, after that, we don't know. Now the fog's right in our face.
Yeah.
It's like, I can tell you that we're going to get these features in the car in the next year.
Yeah.
But like 5 years from now, at this point, I'm lost, like not lost, but I'm lost as to what we're going to see. Like, it's kind of scary in a way because we're looking at fog.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people are rebelling against AI. And it's a huge thing. Like just the fact that our, institution, laws, culture is not ready for the rapid change. So it's actually nice to see BMW at a design level going, we're just going to try this out and not throw it out the window, but also not just make it a religion inside the company. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this. And I mean, I wonder if it's Neue Klasse, I think it was 1961 when it was originally that first Neue Klasse wave. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, that they were about to go into bankruptcy. And so they were like, we have to do something dramatic.
Yeah.
And they brought out, like, what was it, the 1600 and so, like, notable models back in the 60s and 70s.
They started with a 4-door sedan, which ended up becoming the 5 Series. And then they immediately came out with a 2-door and trunk, like a coupe, which was the famous 1600, which turned into the 2002.
Yeah, so they needed a dramatic thing, and like I don't think they're necessarily where they were then. Like we don't think BMW is dying right now, but it is funny how many people have been appalled at their recent design language. You know, the beaver teeth grill and all the things. And I wonder, like, did they realize, oh crap, we need to take a major shift?
I think partially it's also because it's a bit scattered, their design language right now.
Yes.
You know, I think that if you extend what happened with Neue Klasse original, then, the kind of the logical end of that, like that's purely still Neue Klasse in looks and feel is probably the 3.0 CSL, a 6 Series coupe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
After that, you got a whole new series. I feel like the 3 Series from the 80s and the 5 Series from the 80s, the one that you see in Ronin, like that one. And then that 7 Series, that's kind of a little bit boxy, was kind of another wave. And then we got the next wave was the kind of what landed with the E46.
Yeah.
And what is it, E39 for the beloved M5.
Yep.
Right. And then from there, I feel like there was some pretty good milestone. I think the 5 Series with the angel wing taillights was a pretty cool design.
Yeah.
But the 7 Series of that time, with that weird clamshell trunk and stuff, was a little off and still feels a little off today.
Yeah, they've had various hit and miss.
And then you look today, like you got the XM, which looks kind of quite different from the iX, which then looks very different again from the i4. And I know you're saying you're comparing SUVs with, or CUVs or SAVs, whatever BMW calls them, with sedans here. But bear with me for a second. i5, then you have 7, and I feel like it's a little scattered. Like it's not. Remember that cohesion of like 3 sausages with different sizes.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's important.
Yeah, and maybe they're going back to that.
Maybe I hope they're going back to that.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Look, Tesla did it for Model 3 and Model S and X and Y.
Yeah.
So. And they're probably not the reference, but I'm just saying everybody's doing it. Audi did it, Mercedes did it, and you see Mercedes and Audi still being way more consistent in their design language across cars.
Yep.
Whereas the BMW, I just feel like, oh, really? Like when the XM came out, I was like, I get what you're trying to do and the clientele you're trying to get, but like, help us. Please help us.
So I think with the 2 new Neue Klasse models, the X, the crossover ones with
the sedan.
SAV and the sedan, they do look fairly cohesive. And the SAV, their SUV things, they have the upright kidney grills like the original Neue Klasse. And the sedan, they've gone a bit more horizontal.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll stick with that. Like for a while, it was confusing. Even right now, we have an i4 and an i5.
Yeah.
And they have completely
different
grills. And sure, it's BMW, and we can tell. But it's like, it's still not very cohesive. So I wonder if AI will help them with that.
And it's also interesting because you can kind of see, if you take them in isolation, like if you look at the lineage of 3 Series, 4 Series, right? Like you look at an E46 sedan, and then, which I don't know if it's called E46, I think the E46 was only the coupe. But anyway, that generation, and then you look at the i4, but in profile, you can totally see the history of it, right? The front though, whoa, like, the beaver teeth and all that. But where the i5 relative to the 5 Series is much more logical.
Yeah.
And the i7 even though the front is very different on the i7 today, the overall shape, especially that C-pillar, reminds me of the 80s i7. 7 Series.
Yeah.
And you can see some of that, that I feel like there's a certain blockiness to the i5 and i7 that are very throwback to the 80s and work really well because of that. But then you've got this what the hell face in front on, at least on the i4 and i7, to some extent the i7 because of the dual layer headlight.
Yeah.
I don't actually mind the dual layer headlight. It just doesn't work as a BMW face.
Yeah.
For me.
So they have to get their face back. And the interesting thing with Neue Klasse is instead of having like a big fake grille for no reason, they're kind of using it as an actual lighting element.
Yeah.
Which, as we know, in modern cars, that is how to make a signature now. If a face is made from the DRL like lighting stuff.
Yeah.
And Neue Klasse is like, we're going to have the car greet you as you come up to it by using its face. And I kind of like that ethos, that personalizes your vehicle,
100%.
which for some people, it's an appliance. But for some of us car people, we kind of want to maybe personalize our vehicles.
Yeah, and I think it's nice for manufacturers to kind of make cars that work for everyone, because we all have different perspectives. I mean, you and I are kind of more enthusiastic and EV centric. But some folks, like, I don't want to yuck your yum. Like, it's just like, there are some things that seem to work better than others.
Yeah.
And as much as I've really enjoyed BMW experimenting in the last decade, it's been a little bit all over the place.
Yeah. So
it needs to be honed back in.
Yeah.
So
this is maybe a step for that, but we are going to go ahead to the Neue Klasse actual US unveil situation.
Sit in it, maybe.
Yeah,
play with
hopefully
the UI.
play with it. So definitely check out the content we come up with, with Out of Spec reviews and Tech Radar and wherever you're going to put stuff. And
Yep.
we'll have more podcasts in the future. But I'm fascinated by this. I think it's fun to be on this wave of whatever is happening with BMW, but also all the other companies too. But appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about Neue Klasse. I really think that if they pull it off, this could be a really big deal for them and, rekindle the excitement for the brand.
Yes.
From even an entire new generation of people. And so thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell people where they can find me?
Yeah, where can they find you?
So mobiletechpodcast.com is my podcast. It's a weekly, it's audio only, but you can go on Patreon and get a video version, and you get the video version in advance. I'm going to try to have Jordan on at some point soon.
Yeah.
We mostly talk about like personal tech, so the smartphone, the smartwatches, the earbuds, the laptops, tablets, that kind of stuff. But I do often talk about EVs and car tech. And sometimes I do entire episodes, which I think what I want to do with you.
Yeah.
So please subscribe if you can. And also Tech Radar, if you want to be like, you don't care about the personal stuff, you just want the car stuff, techradar.com. There's a column there. Look for my name, Myriam Joire. I'm sure you'll put it down somewhere.
Yeah.
And look for me. And you'll find like every 2 weeks or so, I do like an opinion trends, kind of analysis piece on some kind of technology or some kind of like hot take on something.
Yeah. So look for her Neue Klasse stuff on there and check out my video on Out of Spec reviews. And we'll see you in another Out of Spec podcast very soon.